Hello, friends. I'm Holly Elissa Bruno, and I want to welcome you and my sidekick and good friend, Denise Rokicki.
Hello,
Hi,
hello.
Denise. Hey, we are doing our weekly Two Trauma Survivors Walking Each Other Home program. And what we do each week is invite people who are trauma survivors or close to trauma survivors or work with trauma surviving children. We invite you to join us to look at how can we live full, enriching, honest, authentic lives, given we were raised with trauma both outside of us and took it inside of us. And so today, I'm going to just introduce myself briefly. I'm Holly Elissa Bruno, and I wrote a book entitled, is wildly enough, Happiness is Running Through the Streets to Find You, Translating Trauma's Harsh Legacy into Healing. And the intention there is to say, yeah, I am traumatized. And at the same time, I can take my broken heart and find ways to turn it into art. Or, as another textbook says, my painful past can become my greatest asset. And Denise Rokicki, my buddy, how is it that you feel this program is useful to you as a trauma survivor? What does it mean to you?
Uh, I come to this program every week for the last 4 years, is it?
Yes.
To make sure that I have a focus and an intention to heal, and that I think about it every week, the healing. So that's my purpose, to heal and to help others along the way.
Yeah, I have this feeling that as I do this for myself, I do this for all others, which doesn't mean that I do anything for anybody else except co-create with you and anybody with us a space where telling the truth is acceptable, where we're curious, not judgmental, and where we look together to help each other in connection, find ways to live our truest lives. And I want to invite Denise to do something she does for us every week, which is to share with you a couple of things you can do and Denise and I can do if we get stressed talking about trauma, or if anything comes up that is like feels more like a trigger to you. Denise, what do you recommend people do to keep their safety in mind if something comes up that troubles them?
The first thing is that you should have a nice fresh water nearby that you can take a
It's,
swig of.
yep.
That really helps to calm one. And also there is a application. If you touch the Google search on your telephone, you can ask for a warm line, trauma survivor warm line, and there are people there to help you cope with your trigger.
You got it. And the people that are there, as Denise mentioned, they're not there to judge you. They're everyday people who've experienced trauma as well, and they're trained and skilled at listening and supporting us as we get through our days with trauma. At my worst, trauma has shut me down, and I just can't think straight. And the data on that says that my brain, my executive function, if you're with us, you're willing to just touch your forehead, you'll be touching that part of your brain. The skull is right in front of it. That's the part of your brain that's most recently developed. It's the part of our brain that gives us perspective, that helps us have a sense of humor, that helps us be problem solvers, that helps us remember that there's hope and that we can bounce back. And that part of our brain, not just most recently developed, but also it's the most powerful to help me as a trauma survivor heal, as Denise said, but it also can be slammed, banned, shut down by 90 to 95% if I am retriggered. And so we talk throughout this program over the last 4 years, we talk a lot about what's one thing we can do right now. What's one thing we can do to help ourselves reclaim our true selves if under pressure? And today, especially, Now we get into today's topic. Today in the United States of America, and we know that people are coming from all over the world to join us, but in the United States of America, this is a transition of power. The election took place for the president back in November on the 6th, and today a new president was sworn in. And we now have a whole new administration. And the whole new administration has a whole different agenda than any other administration has ever had in the United States. And this affects trauma survivors particularly. And so I'm just going to ask Denise to start out with. Denise, given today is the beginning of a new era, 4 years of a new administration. How are you doing as a trauma survivor with this transition, with this day?
I really have tried to focus on sharing peace, put out peace be with you, all that. Today I even stood out there on the corner in this freezing cold weather with a big, huge peace sign saying Black Lives Matter. I'm really trying to put out peace. I don't want to dwell on what's going to be horrid about it. I am triggered because, I thought we had come a long way in our women's rights and in our safety for women. And we are not safe. I mean, this guy is not safe to women. So it is triggering that, more than a quarter of our country wanted this. And I'm sad for that, but I know that we're going to make it through. And, at each crossing, we have an opportunity to resist.
Thanks for that, Denise. We're going to keep going back and forth, Denise and I are, and we've got other people joining us. If you want to chime in, just let us know. Also, Denise, could you bring the chat up?
I did. I
Oh,
did bring
good.
the chat
Okay,
up.
so we can watch that. So
Yeah, I'm
I
monitoring the
want
chat.
to respond to my own question. Today is the day that a person who is a felon, a convicted felon, and many of you know I'm an attorney dedicated to the Constitution. He's not just a convicted felon, he is a molester of women, found liable for that in civil court. There are other cases against him, which will probably be stopped now because of the changes in our legal system in the United States. And he has
Lusted after his daughter.
correct. Lusted after his daughter. Oh, and now that the Supreme Court of the United States, which was one of the three bodies, the safekeeping bodies in the United States, we had the president, the executive function, we have the Congress elected by the people, and then we have the Supreme Court, which was for years seen as a sacred institution, is no longer a sacred institution. It has been packed, and it is now a very it just reflects one side of the United States. Now, you may be listening and may be on that side. In that case, that's fine. We invite everybody to come as yourself to this program. And we invite everybody to talk about where are you? I have had powerful conversations after the election with people that I knew did not support my candidate, did not support my values. I had conversations with him with this phrase in my heart: help me understand why you're happy with the election. And I had so many of those conversations. I understand that there are people that feel safe. And I also understand that there are people who don't feel safe. And I'm going to express one thing right now that has not necessarily to do with women, it has to do with trauma survivors in another way. I am neurodiverse. What does that mean? Well, back in the day, I would have been called special needs, except when I was coming of age, because I'm 79, special needs people were people who were visibly troubled. The disease of complex post-traumatic stress disorder wasn't even named when I was coming up. There wasn't the only word there was to describe post-traumatic stress disorder was something for veterans of foreign wars called shell-shocked. So when I was a child and I would have panic attacks, so I was a child, and as I said before, my executive function, my ability to survive, was shut down by 90 to 95%. I blamed myself. I thought, this is me. I have come to see that 1/3, at a minimum, 1/3 of every woman, 1/3 of us in the United States of America has been molested sexually. I'm an incest survivor. Denise, do you want to say how
I'm
you
an
identify
incest
yourself?
survivor as well, and I was molested by a neighbor. And
Yep, and I was date raped, okay? Date raped as an adult. And all of the old feelings came back. I have no choice here. This was a big 6'4" man. I said no, and I was not heard. And so getting back to being neurodiverse, I'm neurodiverse because my brain was affected by the trauma that I faced as an infant, probably pre-birth, because my mother was mentally ill. So I have in my family generations of women who survived by being mad women. Shakespeare wrote about this. It was a way we survived by being mad women, but it's not pretty because it means that we feel totally out of control. And as a child, I took care of my mother when she would split off from herself and have psychotic episodes, when she would have what was called in the 1950s nervous breakdowns. So I raise this election manifestation. We now have a new person who's the head, a new man who's the head of the United States of America, who literally made fun of a man who was neurodiverse, a reporter who spoke and acted differently at a press conference, and the now president of the United States mocked him, imitated, made fun of him. In that moment, because I am neurodiverse, and even equally importantly, because I have one of my adult children is neurodiverse, I immediately said, I cannot support this person. I cannot support anyone who makes fun of someone who is different. I can't do that. I will not do that. That was a deal breaker right there. And I'm concerned. I am concerned. My son is severely disabled. He is one of the people that is protected by the government because our government, when it's at its best, this is my belief, helps and takes care of people who cannot take care of themselves. My son is a hard worker, great work ethic, but he cannot work because the disease stops him from working. Does that make him a bad person? Absolutely not. It makes him a person who has qualified fully for Social Security protection. Now we have the threat that Social Security will disappear. And what will happen with my son? When he says, Mom, can I come home and live with you? My mama's heart says, yes, of course. Of course. And my wise 79-year-old survivor of much trauma self says, no, that's not possible. I am not equipped to be the caregiver of a person who has severe mental health challenges. I am not equipped to do that. I cannot do that. He's in the right place now, living in a group home. He's safe. He's got food. He's got protection. And so there we go, my friends. that whole thing could change. And I just want to ask Denise too, because it's not just those among us who are severely disabled that get Social Security. I get Social Security because I paid into it for a lifetime. And now I've decided to get the results of that. And so every month I get my earnings back. And that helps me a great deal, especially through hard times. And Denise, what's your story with Social Security? And
With
what's your
Social
spirit?
Security, actually, my father died when I was 4 years old. And so I collected Social Security till I was, well, my mom collected it for me until I was 18. And then I went to college on it and bought a car, had enough to buy a little car. And then I got a job teaching or, worked for my career. And now I'm waiting for, let's see, today's January, February, March, April, May. 4 more months, I get to start collecting my Social Security, which I'm quite delighted for. So I can't wait for it. I'm excited. I worked for it. I paid into it. I worked really hard. Because I'm in early childhood, my wages were not the highest. My brother's Social Security, who worked probably half as long as I worked, but he worked at a higher wage, and his is significantly more than mine. But I know how to live. I know how to cope with limited income. So,
And Denise is just stating another point about being a trauma survivor. We can survive just about everything. Not all the time. There are times when I feel like this is it. I can't do this anymore. I feel that way sometimes. I'm just here to say that's my truth. However, I almost always, and to this moment, I have always been able to choose to find life worth living. The disease of post-traumatic stress disorder kills people. It kills people. Traumatized people die of being traumatized. If you look at the adverse child, and Denise helped me out with this, if you look at the ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, you will see that those of us who have high scores, meaning we had a parent who was mentally ill. We had a parent that was physically or sexually abusive. We didn't have a parent. We lost a parent, as Denise did. We had violence in our family. All of these we had addictions in our family. All of these different factors add up so that Denise and I are right up there close to the top with 8 out of 10 points, right?
hey,
Yeah. And so that means that one of the things it means is we're not supposed to be alive. I'm 79. According to the ACEs study, I could have been dead years ago. I have an 81-year-old sister. When she turned 80, I said, "Hey, did you expect to be alive?" "Absolutely not," was her response. And so living long is not what we can expect as trauma survivors. And Janice, what's your take on that?
we have less healthy practices, due to our abuse and our sensation of worthlessness. So, like I smoke, so that's a risk factor in my health. I have high blood pressure. That is a risk factor.
And let's ask the people, thank you, Denise. Let's ask the people who are listening. If you're a trauma survivor or you have a person in your life who is a trauma survivor, including little children, what are the risk factors? And I'll tell you one of mine that I don't talk about much. I had so many panic attacks as a child. I didn't even know what they were. I just was put immediately in hypervigilance where I thought I'm in danger right now. I've got to protect myself. And so I didn't sleep well as a child because my father was a predator. My father was a pedophile. I couldn't say that until I was 60 years old. How could I say that? It was a secret. It was something so shaming that no one would talk about. I have been disowned by members of my family because I say this out loud. Why do I say it? To blame my father, make him a bad guy? No. I say it to liberate myself. I did not choose to be sexually abused. As an infant, a toddler, a girl, I did not choose that. That was inflicted upon me. And because I knew that could happen at any time, once it got dark, once the lights were out, and because I could not have a lock on my door, my father had the right to walk in anytime he wanted to. He did. And I would keep myself awake at night so I could protect myself. How did I protect myself? Well, not very well, but I did the best I could. I would squeeze up against my crib so that he couldn't wake me up. That's one of the things I did. But the older I got and the less I could pretend I was sound asleep, the more I simply did something called dissociation, which is what trauma survivors use. Denise is nodding. We use it when things are so unbearable that we need to escape, from the moment. And so, Denise, go ahead as I'm speaking. What does this bring up in you?
When you mentioned hypervigilance, I get a little twinge because in early childhood classrooms or centers, it's a very good skill to be hypervigilant. And but it does take extra energy. So, but yeah, I was hypervigilant a lot.
And what do you mean by hypervigilance, sweetie?
Paying attention to the exits, who's around, is anyone escalating? Paying attention to every possible disruption that might happen. I also dissociated during my abuse, and I don't have a lot of memories of that happening once I was away from the abuse. But I imagine I did because it's a common trigger result where I wasn't really there. And I had to make an effort later in life as I reflected that I want to be authentic. So that dissociation made me less authentic. I was gone. So I wanted to remedy that. I focused on that as a healing need.
So Denise has nailed it. Hypervigilance is a behavior that we get as a result of not being safe. The most crucial thing, according to Dr. John Medina, who's one of the authors of the ACEs study, most crucial thing is that we give ourselves as survivors and we give traumatized children safety first. A child who's not safe cannot learn. An adult who is not safe cannot breathe. I felt so unsafe in my life from two factors. One, my father's violent rage, and he did beat me until I blacked out. So I never felt safe within the four walls of the house that he built. And my mother's mental illness. She could trip into not just dissociating from herself, but just splitting off from herself and could become in my presence a mad woman. And even though I was the youngest of the family, it was my job to take care of her. So I never felt safe within those four walls. And as a result, unlike Denise, who didn't feel she dissociated as much, I constantly used dissociation as a way to survive. So much so that I, at a point when I was under special threats, I became almost agoraphobic. Agoraphobic. And what does that mean? Agora is the Greek word for gathering place, and phobic, you know what that means. So if I'm afraid of being with other people because I'm in danger, where can I stay? In my house. I observed my mother being agoraphobic. That was her way of being a trauma survivor. She also was an incest survivor who never spoke of that. Denise, have you known people that have been so traumatized that they're afraid to leave their homes?
Yes. Yeah, I belonged to a group a long time ago during AOL days, and there were several women that came to that group that didn't leave their home.
So they came virtually.
Yes. Yeah, we could chat on AOL.
Yeah, it was a safe place. It
Yes.
was a safe place. So let's get back, Denise, and I'm watching our time here. Let's get back to today. Let's honor the day. The day is a time in history. And I just read something that said, um, let's give him a chance. Let's see what he'll do. And my response to that is he had a chance for 4 years, and I saw what he did. And I was terrified. I was then a 5-year-old person with, because of the trauma I experienced, uh, vulnerabilities to my respiratory system. And I was not taken care of when I was a child. I should have been hospitalized for chronic acute bronchitis, and my parents didn't notice me. They didn't notice me. So they didn't hospitalize me. Even when a doctor said, I've got to hospitalize her, they said no. Why? Because their responsibility was to make sure they showed up with their offspring at relatives' houses over the holidays. That was their responsibility. That came first before my health. That's part of the way dysfunctional thinking goes in a dysfunctional family. So 8 years ago, there was a pandemic. And that pandemic threatened some of us, especially seniors, and particularly seniors with respiratory illnesses. And so I was in danger. I had been in Singapore and gotten a disease called respiratory syncytial virus, which kills babies. I have friends who've lost their babies to it. It's now attacking seniors. I'm a senior. When the president, who's president now, was president, not only did he say, just shoot up with bleach, and he said that, I heard him, people deny it, but I was there when I heard him say that. He did not believe, he poo-pooed the idea that there was a pandemic going on. It was only, and Denise, remember this, when we got a new president, that we finally got help with the pandemic, that I could finally get a shot. And I tell you, in that moment when because of the first time that the shots were available, it was hard to get them. I had to seek all over the internet and get right in just at the right time. And in the moment when I was seeking to get a shot, I felt panicked. I felt I might not make it. And that was an old response as a trauma survivor, the fear I'm not going to survive. And that came up a lot of times during that administration. Will it come up during this administration? Well, today is the first day. We'll see.
We will see, no matter what, we will see.
I spoke with friends this morning in Chicago. They're saying that the word is out in Chicago that people will be rounded up today. People who are allegedly not here legally will be rounded up today. Is that possible? Sure it is. Because were children thrown into cages? Were children separated from their families and thrown into cages? Yes, they were.
Still many are separated from their families.
At least 500 families are separated from their children now that the records were not kept.
Right.
So those children can't find out who their families were. And even if they were, Denise, who knows a great deal about early childhood education, Denise, could those children who were separated from their parents at such an early age and have been separated now for close to 10 years, what would their path be like if their biological parents came back into their lives today?
It would be terribly confusing. I mean, maybe they're gonna be excited and happy, but you don't know. They're traumatized now.
Mhm.
They're not in their logical brain. They're either in the emotional or survival. And
Mhm.
it would be, they would require therapeutic intervention, I believe.
No, I'm with you 100%. What happens if a child, here's the truth about me as a trauma survivor. Every child that was not taken care of or protected or loved unconditionally or seen or heard as a child, every one of us feels like we have to survive on our own. There ain't going to be nobody there for us. And that's scary because one of the things that makes us alive is to live in connection.
Right. We are fiercely independent.
Fiercely independent, often to the point of not being able to ask for help.
Right.
Took me decades. How about you, Denise? Took me decades to not only ask for help, but then when it came to receive help and to even make that more simple, it took me decades to be able to accept a compliment. A compliment is help. Somebody's saying, hey, thank you, Holly Elissa, you helped me. And I couldn't feel that. It took me decades to be able to stop myself from running away from the compliment and say thank you. And then focus on allow my heart to be open to somebody telling me that I made a difference in their lives. Have you dealt with that, Denise?
Yes, I've, either felt underappreciated or didn't believe compliments.
Right. And that can still happen to me today. I was with a group of people and I got some really wonderful feedback and I stopped myself so that I could hear it, not just let it be deflected from me. So let's look at this day. I think we're getting, within 10 minutes of our end. Let's look at this day and how we're dealing with it. Denise, you said up front, you focused on peace, and I commend you for that. What listeners, if you come back again and again, you'll see that Denise and I have very different approaches. I often have the feeling first. Denise often goes to a remedy first. And the feeling that I've had this weekend has been fear. I know as a trauma survivor, I have a perpetual choice, and that's between being a reactor to what's going on or being an actor. 8 years ago, I chose to participate in a women's march, and that uplifted my soul. This year, I had a plan to go with a friend of mine to a women's march in nearby New Hampshire. She bailed at the last moment, no shaming or blaming there, and I did not go on my own. I'm going to tell you the truth, my friends, I have been in bed, hiding out, because my feeling has been so sad. I've been sad that this democracy that I care so much about is under severe threat. I'm so sad that this first woman who also was Black, who was going to become president of these United States, and finally America could have a woman leader who also was a person of color. I am so sad that that very deserving, well-qualified, brilliant, articulate woman did not get to raise her hand and take the oath of allegiance. I am so sad and heartbroken that I am, as a trauma survivor, choose to feel those feelings first, because one of the first things a child learns in surviving trauma is don't feel, don't have any feelings. And Denise, why are feelings not okay for us?
Because we're afraid that if I cry one tear, I'll cry 1,000. If
That's
I
right.
feel one speck of joy, it will overwhelm me to the point of overwhelmedness.
You got it, girlfriend. Dr.
It'll
Bessel
be
van
too
der Kolk
much.
said it would be too much. He said in his powerful book, The Body Keeps the Score, he said, look, trauma survivors, and in fact, people coming out of war for years said, if I allow myself to feel sad, I will be, and here's the image, I'll be swept away by a tsunami of tears and I won't be able to recover. I have chosen over the years to a step at a time, little tiny breath at a time, feel the sadness. Now I feel the sadness and it could be overwhelming. So what am I doing so that I want to tell you, that's my truth. This weekend, I felt severely depressed and sad because of the inevitability of the loss of democracy and especially the loss of women's rights and the loss of
Of the
immigrant
law,
rights
the law that,
protected us,
right.
doesn't
Yeah, that's really upsetting.
really upsetting. And so we begin a whole new administration. Now, Denise and I are in America. We know some of you are in other countries. You are maybe facing or maybe not facing similar issues. Trauma survivors are everywhere. And what I want to invite you to say or consider as we close here is, what is one enduring truth you have learned? And I'm going to ask this of you, listeners, and of Denise and of me. What is one of the hard learned survivors' truths you have that will help you when you have a difficult day, as we are having a difficult day in this country right now? And if anyone who's with us online wishes to join us, great. I think actually the chat has ended, but I'll just ask Denise, if you're ready, what is one survivor's truth you have learned to help you face and not just survive, white knuckle, but live as a trauma survivor on difficult days?
So for me, I want to focus on gratitude and of what I'm thankful for. And when I look around my living space here, I remind myself I am here, I am safe. And I try to stay there.
I am here, I am safe is a phrase that Denise worked with for children, for little preschoolers who would come in from a variety of experiences, including trauma. And Denise, how would you greet them?
I would, they had little sticks with their face on them and their name, and they would find their stick from the wish you well. It was looked like a wishing well. I made it out of a tree stump. They would take their stick out of that wish you well and put it into the school family tree. In the school family tree, they would say, I am here, I am safe. And when they left, they would take their stick and we would sing goodbye to them and they would put themselves into the wish you well. We wish you well for the next however many hours you're going to be, perhaps in trauma, which I work with a lot of poverty kids, and poverty is trauma already. So
Poverty is trauma. And I want to say that even not being in poverty doesn't free us
right.
from trauma. You can have the richest people on earth who are traumatized. And Eleanor Roosevelt's one of those examples. She grew up with an uncle who was threatening her all the time. He was going to come into her bedroom. She was pushing bureaus against it, and she wasn't safe. So it's time to end. I think we've got a couple of minutes.
No, we still have time. It's only 3:41.
Oh, is that right, Denise? Silly
Yeah,
me.
it's 3:41. We have
All
time.
right, well, honey, then let's invite. Okay, so I'll say one thing. First off, that has helped me, and that is besides being in touch with my feelings, which is something I could never do before. I just couldn't do that. It was too frightening, and also made me vulnerable. If I was sad, somebody could trash me, make fun of me. What's wrong with you? Can't you take it? You want something to cry about?
Yeah, we got that.
I'll give you something to cry about. That being vulnerable was totally unsafe. And so I actually look at the person who's now in charge of the United States and of the military. And I don't have much doubt but that this person is a trauma survivor. Because trauma survivors do one of two things. Either we become victims to the traumatizer, or we become, I'm sorry, say it, Denise.
Perpetrate.
We become perpetrators. We become the people who harm other people. And either way, trauma survivors cannot be happy. My family's message to me was, we can't be happy, you can't be happy either. My father, as both a predator and a narcissist, took his rage out on others, especially people who didn't have the power that he had, which meant girls, women, children,
Disabled.
otherwise able. He took his pain as a trauma survivor out on those who were vulnerable. Hence, don't be vulnerable. Narcissists, one of the psychological theories is that narcissists, and you know about this, right, Denise? Narcissists are people who were allegedly so hurt as children that they survive by becoming narcissists. And as you probably know, a narcissist is someone who has no capacity for empathy. The world is all about keeping them happy. Not just keeping them happy, but keeping them in power. And so several experts have said that the current person who's the head of the United States and military is a narcissist. Do I feel safe with that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Narcissists can also are bullies, but they can also be readily wooed, won over, flattered.
It's not safe.
It's not safe. It isn't safe. Okay, so one of the other things I learned about being a survivor who wants more than just being a survivor, I want to live my life. I have learned, and I knew it from birth, the value of courage. Notice my fingers are shaking as I say this, but they're quite controlled also, because courage is what it takes for me to say, yeah, I'm in danger. Yeah, this country is not safe. Yeah, to be a woman, not safe. To be an outspoken person, not safe. To be a strong civil rights person, not safe. And yet, if I cover up who I am, I'm not safe to myself. I need to have, and this is what I've discovered, I need to have the integrity of speaking my voice and speaking the truth of my voice. And today's the first day since this program started 4 years ago, well, going on 5 years ago now. Actually, soon it'll be 5 years. Well, 5 years ago, we were in the same situation. We had the same president, did we not?
Yes. However, he was starting from ground zero then. Now he's starting with knowledge. And it's a little scary.
It's a lot scary, Denise. And what do? Fear is the thing that demobilized us, traumatized us, froze us. You know, those 5 responses to fear: freeze, fly, get the hell out of here, fawn, people please, fight back. Well, I guess it's the fighting back that you and I are doing. Every time you get out there and you stand before drivers going by and you hold up Black Lives Matter, what happens?
It depends. Like we get on different days, it's different energy. But sometimes people go by,
Mm-hmm. And they
mostly
spit.
old men, old white
Mm-hmm.
men do that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people roll down the window and say, all lives matter. But
And
a
Denise,
lot of people
why
too,
why does that not work for you, hearing all lives matter?
I just say, yes, yes, they do, sir. You're right. All lives matter. But Black lives are the ones that are not treated as if they matter in the
That's right.
legal system, in the society, in the culture. So that's why I just say, yeah, thank you. Thank you for your participation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people go by. Sometimes we have a lot of really enthusiasm. Not beep, 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 beep. A lot of people come back because we do it every Monday and Wednesday. So a lot of people expect
Mm.
to see us and they just wave, 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 like, we know you're there. Peace to you too. Yep, I love you. They people are so sometimes it leans one way, sometimes it leans the other way. It's interesting. And today the traffic was light because it's a holiday off work. And I would say it's about 50-50. There's also the other people, the one group of people that I like to point out are the don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look. Like they drive by and try not to see us and pretend, pretend we're not there. I call them
That's
the
another. The don't what? What do you call them?
don't lookies. Don't
Don't
look,
look.
don't look.
And that's the way trauma survivors have used for years. I would just pretend it wasn't happening. Denial
Right.
is the beginning of surviving. If I just pretend nothing's happening to me right now, something's happening to my body, something my father might be abusing my body, but my spirit can just go up to that and
Yep.
pretend I'm not feeling it. Let's honor. I'd like to do something else today, Denise. Today isn't just the inaugural day. Today, every year in the United States of America, is something that we honor. It hasn't been honored when you and I were children. And what is that? Whose day do
Martin
we,
Luther King Jr.
right? And what's one thing you want to honor about him? Was he a trauma survivor?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he was.
Is there any person of color who's not a trauma survivor?
No. The whole reason behind Black Lives Matter is that they did not have a fair shake.
Still don't.
They still do not have a fair shake. And but it is better. They have jobs, there are jobs available to now, and they can buy houses and build family wealth. A little better than when I was a kid.
So let's look at Dr. Martin Luther King, the trauma survivor, the man who was annihilated. And that is the ultimate threat for someone who speaks up, someone who is his true self, someone who says, yeah, I'm from a group that deserves better treatment. Yeah, I'm from a group that is denied rights. Messenger gets shot. What do you want to say about him and his life, Denise, on this day when we honor him as well?
I'm ever so grateful that now we do know. Now we can't deny. Now the mathematical statistics about incarceration and school to prison pathways are out. And so now, because they're out, because they're spoken, now we can address them and try to remedy them.
Yeah. And there's something else I want to say that I remember Dr. Martin Luther King said, and it was in his I Have a Dream speech. And one of the things he said was heartbreaking, but it was true. He said, I can see the day when little black children, little white children will have rights. I can see that day. I may not be with you, but I can see that day. And I want to say to all of us, like, God bless Tim Walz and Kamala Harris and all the other people who took a stand for democracy, for women's rights, for freedom, for justice, for climate change, for the environment, for truth.
For giving us hope for, 8 or how many weeks was it? Maybe 8 weeks. Really,
Oh,
honestly, we were inspired by hope.
we were. And Dr. Martin Luther King gave us the same thing. And he told the truth. I might not be with you. Kamala Harris is not raising her hand today. Tim Walz is not raising his hand today. And yet they are with us. And those of us who have survived and continue to survive trauma, there are women dying every day now, dying every day because they can't get the medical attention they need, because they live in states where doctors are terrified of giving them the medical treatment they deserve. So I want to thank Dr. Martin Luther King for reminding us that even though we might not all see a time when those rights are restored. Hey, I'm 79. I'd like to live to see a woman be president of the United States. I'd like to live to see rights thriving. I live today. Today's what I have. And today, Denise and I are here with you. We're going to wrap, but we're here with you every week to invite you to bring to us and share with us truth telling to power and leveling about what it's like to have endured the trauma we endured and still choose to live our fullest lives.
And take care of ourselves and eat good foods and eat your colors and drink your water and some kind of exercise. I mean, that's how we can cope for the next 4 years. We can keep ourselves the strongest as we can be.
And thank you, Denise, for those pointers, and also to stay in connection.
Right.
Isolation is one of the things we're taught. I can't trust anybody, so I can only depend upon myself. Isolation has been a pathway for us, and yet connection is what keeps us alive. When you go out there twice a week and you march with those sisters, those nuns, that's connection.
It
Four
is.
times a week, 4 times a week, I join with other people who have survived trauma. We pray, we don't judge each other, and we share ways in which we are making our lives as full as we can. And we learn from each other. So connection, self-care, getting out of doors. I haven't done that for a few days. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Out there. Just, you know what? Pine needles, I just read today, pine needles exude a kind of scent that clears our chests.
Nice.
Yeah, we know that trees, I mean, I have in my bedroom, I have these pillows full of pine needles because in the bleak midwinter, I hold them to my face. It's
You
like
could
when I
grab
went,
some from the trees where you walk
yes,
and scoop them up and put them in a saucepan or a pan on the stove with water and let that evaporate into your environment.
yes, yes. Nature has given us all of these healing remedies.
All we have to do is do them.
All I have to do is open my heart to them. And one of the healing remedies is opening my heart, not closing it off. When I see
Two
people,
minutes.
thanks, sweetie. When I see myself closing myself off, I know I'm doing what trauma survivors do. I am encapsulating myself to protect myself from all of the pain and the reality. And you know what? Are you going to watch news today, Denise?
No, I mean, I'll watch Rachel tonight at 9. But I wanted to say also early childhood people that work in early childhood, it
Mm-hmm.
the neediness does take a lot out of us. So we do need the rest. However, we need the connection too. I mean, because we have kind of this dilemma of being so tired after work, but we still have to make ourselves connect with adults that, you know, are peers as well, not just the kids.
And I'm smiling my teeth off at you saying that because I love reading something that I know in my soul to be true, which is as a trauma survivor, I'm tired. I'm tired from the majority of my life fighting to be my true self. I thought a lot of that was over. I thought I could just be my, thanks, Denise. I thought I could be my true self. Now I know it's dangerous. And I'm choosing today, and I'm choosing it 1 minute at a time sometimes to tell my truth. You mentioned Rachel. I'm going to watch her tonight too, and Lawrence O'Donnell. I watch the people who are willing to speak truth to power. And I
They
wonder,
are the helpers. They are
Fred
bring
Rogers said, look for them.
right. They are bringing, our information to us, and we need the truth.
And they're threatened. I noticed that the prior president um, pardoned Fauci,
Right.
pardoned other people. I had hoped that he would pardon journalists and Vindman, people who had stood up.
Remember
I don't.
Amy Acton?
Yes.
She's running for governor here in the future. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right then. Well, Denise, it's time to end our program.
Yes. Thanks for
So,
joining us, Melissa.
Melissa, thank you so much, sweetheart. Glad you
Oh,
were here.
thank you. Thank you. A lot of good
Th-
things, and I'm feeling really inspired by both of you.
Right on.
Melissa, thank you, sweetheart. Thank you so much. Hope to see you again and bring a friend. Bring a friend.